Hey Chaotic Crew, Brian here, and we're going over the second precon from Edge of Eternities here. We're giving you a review, upgrade, and we're going to be giving away one of these precons of your choice. Just make sure to watch the previous precon video, make the special comment on that video. And on this video, I want you to comment down below, what's your favorite insect creature card in Magic the Gathering? For me, I would have to say I really love the art for Vishgraz, the Abzan Phyrexian insect from the All Will Be One Commander deck. I was always thinking about making stuff, but it made mites, not insects, so that always irked me. But probably my favorite art for the card is that. But let me know in the comments below, and then on the 25th, if I'm not mistaken, should be on next Friday after this video is dropped. We're going to be going live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/chaoticcommandermtg, 9:30 p.m. Central, and essentially we'll be announcing who wins the precon and kind of go from there. But make sure to check that out. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content, for more precon giveaways, upgrades, and deck techs in general. But let's just dive into World Shaper, which is the Jund Land Sacrifice Lands Matter precon here in Edge of Eternities. It's led by Hearthhole, the World Seed, and it's 4 mana for a spacecraft. Of course, if you're not familiar with the station mechanic, you can tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft. Station only has a sorcery. And then this creature is this is an artifact creature at 8+ charge counters. So at 2+ counters, it gets the ability, it's just an artifact with the ability, 1 tap, sacrifice a land, draw 2 cards. You may play an additional land this turn. So that's pretty cool, giving you card draw. Because this is a land heavy deck, you might draw into some lands, so being able to play one of them potentially is helpful. And then of course, as a creature, it's a 6/7 flying vigilance haste. Whenever you sacrifice a land, each opponent loses 2 life. So that is pretty neat there. So this deck really cares about sacrificing lands. Drawing cards is nice, but you're going to be, either discarding them later or, playing more lands, or playing the big spells that you have in your hands, right? And really cares about that. It's a payoff and the way to sacrifice land, which is really nice. Something you want to have in the command zone when you really care about that kind of thing. Other artifacts, Exploration Broodship, another new card. 1 green mana for a spacecraft. And at 3+ charge counters, it just is an artifact with you may play an additional land on each of your turns, so love that. And then at 8+ counters, it has flying, it's a 4/4, and once during each of your turns, you may cast a permanent spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a land in addition to paying its other costs. So this is really neat. We are getting a lot of things in our graveyard, whether we're milling or discarding, so sometimes we'll have to discard creatures or mill creatures, and being able to get these permanents that we care about back out is really nice. Hammer Perforos is good, just gives our creatures haste, and we can also sacrifice lands with this, making 3/3 golems, which is not neat. And then, of course, running Arcane Signet and Soul Ring. For creatures, let's take a look at the alternate commander. Cizerl, Genesis Shepherd, 2 of anything, and Jund. For an insect druid, 2/5 power toughness. It's a 2/5 flyer, and you may play lands from your graveyard, so really love that. And then whenever you sacrifice another non-token permanent during your turn, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to Cizerl's power on up to 1 other target creature. So that's really neat here. I think, you don't have to play this in a lands deck. I think it can be in a Jund good stuff, right? If you're sacrificing treasures, or you're focused on foods, or any other kind of sacrifice strategy, but being able to play the lands in the graveyard kind of leans more towards landfall style decks, but you can kind of do a lot more with Cizerl. Umedium Wastewalker, another new card, 4 mana 4/4 Insect Cleric. Whenever this creature attacks, you and defending player each discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. You draw a card for each land card put into a graveyard this way. Then, of course, it has Encore for 8 mana. So, yeah, this is a nice, I guess, way to sacrifice lands. Your opponents probably aren't going to be sacrificing anything valuable. It's typically going to be a token, but it may also be a land, and just giving you an extra card draw, right? They don't want to lose anything valuable in their hand, so they will be getting rid of their least valuable thing, but you're probably going to be sacrificing a land and drawing a card, right? So something to think about there. Even though Brush Razor, another new card, 3 mana 2/2 Insect Warrior. Whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, as long as you've sacrificed a non-token permanent this turn, you may play cards exile with this creature, and then you tap, sacrifice a land, add red. So again, this card is the payoff, but also allows you to sacrifice lands as well. So that's really cool there, but it doesn't have to be just in a lands deck. It's whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent. So it can be in, not treasures, because those are token permanents, but it could be in sacrifice aristocrat style decks as well, and still be pretty good there. Bailiff Prime, 4 mana 10/10, but it enters with 6 stun counters on it. Whenever you sacrifice a land, you create a tapped 4/4 green beast and untap this creature. So obviously instead of untapping it, you remove a stun counter. Then you can pay 4 mana, sacrifice a land, and you gain 2 life. So again, it has the payoff and the ability to sacrifice a land on it. So this really trying to make this kind of strategy powerful, just because there hasn't really been a ton of synergy around specifically sacrificing the lands. So that's something to think about there. Horizon Explorer, it is a 3 mana Insect Scout 2/4. Lands you control enter untapped, so great ability to have right there. And then whenever you attack a player, you make a Lander token. Now, Lander tokens are new from this main set. They're essentially like a clue, right? But instead of paying 2, sacrificing it, and drawing a card, you're paying 2, sacrificing it, and getting a basic land out from your library. So very good there to ramp in the battlefield or have artifacts to sacrifice to other abilities, right? So that's good to know there. Scouring Swarm, a interesting card as well. 3 mana 1/1 flying insect. Whenever you sacrifice a land, you create a tapped token that's a copy of this creature if 7 or more land cards are in your graveyard. Otherwise, you make a tapped 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. So like Scute Swarm, but a little bit different. I would say a little less powerful. Of course, these tokens are flying, but you're not going to be sacrificing as many lands as you're playing, right? You have to play these lands first to sacrifice them. So you're going to be playing more than you're sacrificing. Braids Arisen Nightmare is really great in this deck. At the beginning of your end step, you sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent of their choice that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life when you draw a card. This deck wants to be sacrificing lands, so you'll typically choose lands with this. Maybe you'll have a land or token and you want to sacrifice an artifact instead, but usually your opponents are going to be losing 2 life and you're going to be drawing a card for each opponent. So very good card here in this deck. Guard Eternal Bantu is an interesting card. 5 mana 5/6 of Menace. When it enters, sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. When God Eternal Bantu dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library 3rd from the top. This is a risky card because you could choose to sacrifice a lot of lands here. And if you have a bunch of payoffs on the battlefield, that's great. But I think this can be pretty risky, sacrificing too many, right? Because we're only playing 1, 2, maybe if we're lucky 3 lands a turn, right? So we don't want to sacrifice too many lands. So paying 5 mana just to sacrifice a couple lands, it is nice that it, semi sticks around, right? We can continuously draw it with our commander's ability, but yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting card to have for sure. Not terrible, but not really amazing either. What is amazing though, Marag, Fury of Akum, 6 mana 6/6. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it's attacked this turn, and then it has landfall, essentially get an extra combat step. You gotta watch out for the timing on this card though, because it being a landfall trigger makes the timing a little bit tricky as to when you want to play the land to get the double combat, but it should work out pretty easily there. Augur of Autumn, 3 mana 2/3. You can look at the top card of your library anytime. You can play a land to the top of your library, and then as long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may cast creature spells on the top of your library. This deck has a lot of creatures, 31 to be exact. So I don't hate this at all, but it requires you to have creatures already. That being said, it is a smaller creature that comes out and automatically turns on the first ability of your commander, which is nice as well. Centaur Vinecrasher, 4 mana 1/1, but it has trample and enters with a number of 1/1 counters equal to the number of lands in all graveyards. Whenever a land card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, you may pay 2 green. If you do, return it from your graveyard to your hand. So this card will just keep coming back and back and back and be, very powerful, right? We've got over 40 lands in this deck, so likely that we may have, 10 plus lands in the graveyard when this enters, right? Lonecrafter Fawn, 3 mana, 3/3. When it enters, you may discard 1 or more land cards. When you do, return up to that many non-land permanents from your graveyard to your hand. So essentially trading the cards in our graveyard with land cards in our hand. Multani, you know, power and toughness equal to lands you control and lands in your graveyard, and has trample, so just a big beater. And you can also return it from your graveyard to your hand. Oracle Moldiah is a great card here. You can play an additional land. You can play lands on the top of your library, so great to have that as well. Rampaging Balos, you know, get a 4/4 green beast when you get a land on the battlefield. Tireless Tracker gives you clues, which is interesting here that they put this one instead of Tireless Provisioner, but still a good card. Titania Protector of Argoth is fantastic because whenever you're sacrificing lands, you're getting 5/3 green elementals, and then when Titania enters, you're returning a land from your graveyard to the battlefield, so I love that there. Worldbreaker is fantastic. It is, you know, 7 mana. When you're casting it, you're exile an artifact, enchantment, or land, and then you can also sacrifice lands to return this from the graveyard to the hand, so nice to have there. Gitrog Monster loves sacrificing lands and gives you card draw for that. Korvold Fey Cursed King, probably the best card in the deck, and I think even if you're in this as a commander, it would be a better deck for it, right? A stronger deck, maybe not as fun to play against, but a really strong card there and a good reprint. Mazarek, Crowd Death Priest, an insect that's going to give you your whole board +1/+1 counters whenever you sacrifice other permanents. Omnath, Locus of Rage, giving you these elementals whenever a land enters and helping bolt things away. Soul of One Grace, helping pull lands out from your graveyard onto the battlefield, and can also discard land cards from your hand to get some neat stuff there. Springbloom Druid's perfect for this deck, sacrificing a land, getting 2 on the battlefield tapped. Sprouting Goblin, if you kick it, adds a land to your hand. It can also sacrifice a land to draw a card. Aftermath Analyst will enter and mill 3 cards, and then you can pay 4 later, sacrifice it, return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Groundskeeper, you know, 1 mana, 1/1, but you can pay 2 to return a basic land from your graveyard to your hand. So that's neat if you need lands there. Satyr Wayfinder, when it enters, you'll mill 4 cards, essentially, and add a land from them into your hand. Jury, Master of the Review, gets bigger the more you sacrifice stuff, and then when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target, so that's always great there. Mayhem Devil is going to ping things when you're sacrificing anything, or when anyone sacrifices anything, so good against treasure decks and other decks that care about sacrificing. And then Urg, Spawn of Turg, power is equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. Give your upkeep, you surveil 1, and then you can also sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. Next, in sorceries, we have Planetary Annihilation, 5 mana sorcery. Each player chooses 6 lands they control, sacrifices the rest. Planetary Annihilation deals 6 damage to each creature. So this is kind of an interesting card. I actually think it's not necessarily going to be the best for you. You know, any kind of Spellslinger, artifact-heavy deck that has a lot of artifact ramp on the battlefield, this kind of helps them a lot. But it is putting some other people on the... it is putting some other people back a whole bit, right? That really do care about lands, and we like sacrificing them, so this is not a problem at all. I would say, you know, the artifact decks that do have a lot of ramp will probably get their board wiped, getting 6 damage dealt to each creature, so it kind of evens out there a little bit, but that's really nice to have. Blasphemous Act is fantastic. Formless Genesis is interesting. It's a Changeling card, which is neat. But it's, you know, you make an XX shapeshifter with Changeling and Death Touch, where X is the number of lands in your graveyard, and then it has Retrace. So just get a bunch of different cards from that. You also have Pest Infestation to destroy up to X target artifacts and enchantments. You make, you know, some pest tokens. Splendid Reclamation gets the lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Escape to the Wilds, exile the top 5, and then you can play them until the end of your next turn. You may play an additional land this turn, so that's always nice. Gaze of Granite to destroy a bunch of non-land permanents. World Soul's Rage is great. Deals X damage to any target. Put up to X land cards from your hand and or graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. Farseek, obviously good ramp. Knight's Whisper gives us some card draw. Cultivate, some good ramp. Nature's Lore, Skyshroud Claim, just getting a bunch of these cards out. Instant, we've got Rakdos Charm for graveyard exile, artifact removal. Putrefy is decent removal. Terra Sunder is great removal and can exile things as well. Roiling Regrowth and Harrow, fantastic ramp there. Beast Within, Infernal Grasp, and Windgrace Judgment, just some more removal cards there. And then we do have Binding the Old Gods, which, you know, destroys a non-land permanent, but also ramps us, so that's always nice. And then as far as lands, we got 42 land cards. There are 3 new ones. Eumidian Hatchery, tap, pay a life, add black mana, put a hatchling counter on this land. When this land is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, for each hatchling counter on it, make a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. So this is a good one to sacrifice, right, and give us some flying blockers. And then we also have Festering Thicket, which is just, you know, the swamp forest of the 2 mana cycling cycle. Vernal Fen, which is the swamp forest that will enter tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So searchable out of this deck, and really good there. Let's go ahead and dive into the 10 cards I'm taking out and the 10 cards I'm adding in. As you can see, I'm actually taking out a little more than 10 cards, and we'll get to that in a bit. This deck, I think the struggles this deck has is for long games can maybe run out of gas a little bit because the deck doesn't have enough basic lands. It's only got 16, and a lot of the abilities that are ramping us want basics, so that's something to think about there. There's also, you know, a few cards that, you know, are more for milling strategies, not as quite great with just the sacrifice land strategies, so that's kind of where I went with this. But let's dive into the cards I'm taking out. First off, God Eternal Bantu. I said it's not a bad card, but it doesn't do enough for this strategy. Like, you have to play it to get it, but maybe you don't have the right resources to take advantage of it when you want to play it. So not being able to just repeatedly use this card is why I thought I would take it out, right? We want something that we can do repeatedly. Groundskeeper is not bad, but it's low power and toughness. It's not really going to turn our commander on unless we wait a turn. And you know, it's returning it to our hand, which we don't even love it being in our hand. We'd rather it be on the field. So that's why I'm taking that out. Jury is just a big creature. She'll get big and she'll deal damage to something, but not amazing, right? And really requires us to sacrifice something for her to get any power and turn our commander on. Korvold, like I said, this is the strongest card of the deck. I'm taking it out, kind of like why I took Miram out of the Teamer's Roar Dragon deck. It's too strong. It's too strong, and when you get this card out, you will get so far ahead, right? It is a payoff and a way to sacrifice lands. If you have it in the command zone, it just makes this deck better. So I really don't like it for that reason. It's just too strong of a card. You're not going to have as much fun playing with Korvold, or your friend group's not, and then soon after you will not as well. Maybe after you play a couple games and you're like, oh man, this card's so much fun, then you'll realize this card is too strong. Too strong. Satyr Wayfinder, it's more of a mill card. We don't really need those 3 cards in our graveyard, and we don't need to add a land to our hand. We already have so many lands in the deck. There's no way we're going to need another one in our hand. Our commander's drawing us cards. We have other ways drawing cards, so no need to fill the graveyard even more. Sprouting Goblin as well. No need to, you know, get a land to our hand. And, you know, it can sacrifice a land to draw a card, sure, but not amazing. Tireless Tracker, I took out. I'd rather have Tireless Provisioner in here. Getting clues isn't as important. Our commander's drawing us cards, right? So don't really need that there. Urg, Spawn of Turg, all it really does is able to sacrifice a land and gain 2 life, and it's just a big creature, right? Sure, it's a good blocker, and there's that, but it also surveils, I guess, too, which is nice. But I don't know. I ended up taking it out. Gaze of Granite, there's just better ones here. We have to put a ton of mana into this to make it worth it at all usually, and it's just not worth it to do that. And then I did take out Myriad Landscape just because it's a tap land. It's sure it's sacrificing and getting us 2 lands, but it's really not ideal, and it's it's slow for what this deck wants, right? Sure, it sacrifices itself, but we already do a lot of that already. We don't need more help in that department. I also, you know, I said this deck needs more basics, so I just threw an example of like the set of cards, like the pain lands that are doing 1 damage to you. You could take out to essentially get some more basics in. That would be really beneficial. I would take out some more cards and get more basics. Right, we really want over 20 basics. That would be so helpful in this deck, just to make sure that we, you know, have a bit more gas in the tank and can keep sacrificing lands and getting basics out. So something to keep in mind there. But I'm going to be adding in a bunch of really cool cards. I have Cesaro here just because they don't have the the spacecraft as the commander option yet on Moxfield. But Lord Windgrace obviously needs to go in the deck. Just a planeswalker that works with lands. Sure, you want to be discarding lands with Lord Windgrace, so not exactly sacrificing them, but it also returns the land to your graveyard to the battlefield, and you can destroy non-land permanents with Lord Windgrace if you get to that point as well. So a really good synergistic with the deck right there. As far as creatures, we have a couple of, you know, new creatures here from the new set, and I'll go ahead and over Splendid Reclaimer. It's an Insect Scout 2/4 for 4 mana. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. You may play a land from your graveyard, and it has landfall whenever a land you control enters a mill a card. So this card's honestly busted. Is putting together 2 abilities that go so well together of being able to play multiple lands from your graveyard. If you've got like Cabaret Courtyard or Riveteer's Overlook in your graveyard, which this deck has, right, all those, you can just get 4 landfall triggers a turn, which would mean you're milling 4 cards with Splendid Reclaimer. You're sacrificing 2 lands, so that's really helpful for all your payoffs there. And yeah, there's just a lot going on with this card that makes it super good. And then there's Famished Worldsire, which I thought was really neat as well. So Famished Worldsire is an 8 mana 0/0, ward 3, but it has Devour Land 3. So as it enters, you may sacrifice any number of lands. It enters with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters. So when it enters, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is its power. So say you sacrifice 3 lands, right? It has 9 power. I think that's reasonable. You know, you look at the top 9 cards of your library, put any number of lands or among them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So we do have 42 lands in here. We have a couple ways to like get it out, but you're typically going to have like a third of the lands in your deck relative to how many cards are left in your deck, right? That's possible. So, you know, usually you're going to be getting the lands back that you sacrificed to Famished Worldsire. So something to keep in mind there. But I thought it was a neat card to have. You're sacrificing lands, you're getting more out. So very fun top end card there. Speaking of the top end, Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, 6 mana from Bloomburrow. You know, Vigilance and Reach, power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. Then when it enters, you mill 4 cards, return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So just continuously refilling your field after sacrificing the lands is always nice there. Round Up Excavator, letting us play lands from our graveyard is nice. Scoot Swarm, you know, whenever a land you control enters, you make a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. Just a way to overwhelm the board, right? We're going to be playing more lands than we are sacrificing them, so having landfall triggers like this is super important. And then, of course, Tyler's Provisioner, always great as well. Going to make us, you know, treasures or foods if we need to gain life. This deck doesn't have a lot of life gain, and it is including the pan lanes if you don't take them out down here. So, you know, there are a couple other cards that lose us life, so having some you know, incidental life gain could be helpful if we don't really need the mana, right, just to have that option. So that's good there. I put Blasphemous Edict in just because I took Gaze of Granite out. I really like this card over Gaze of Granite. It has the potential to be kind of one-sided, like if we have a Scouring Swarm or a Scoot Swarm thing where we actually have more than 13 creatures on board, we can sacrifice, you know, we can sacrifice, you know, 13 and still have some board left. Spelunking, just pretty much going to make it so that, you know, we can put a land card from our hand on the battlefield and that lands we control enter untapped. So having more cards that make our lands enter untapped is going to be really nice and beneficial for some of the other cards we have in the deck. And then I added Shifting Woodland just because we do have some cards going into our graveyard. Really neat there, but you could also add stuff like Ghost Quarter or, you know, like Tectonic Waste or something like that. Like, lands that sacrifice themselves to give value or do land destruction on your opponents or something like that, like that's like fair at least, right? You really want to abuse cards that can sacrifice themselves. This deck comes with a decent amount already that sacrifice themselves, which is nice, but could always use some more, right? But those are the 10 cards I'm putting in and taking out. Hope you enjoyed the deck tech. Remember, if you are, wanting to win one of these precons, make sure to comment down below what is your favorite insect card in Magic the Gathering. Also, don't forget to watch the Counterintelligence precon upgrade, which is already up on our channel, and make sure to comment on that video, that special comment as well. We'll choose a winner on the 25th of July on our Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/chaoticcommandrmtg. Make sure to tune in 9:30 p.m. and we'll announce it then. But otherwise, yeah, I really enjoyed working on these decks. Let me know what you want me to build from Edge of Eternities next. And otherwise, you have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye.